Sky News has obtained a government MP's talking points that have seemingly contradicted messages about the relationship between Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott. Under the heading Abbott Turnbull War, the document says that the Prime Minister and the member for Warringah are working in the same direction when it comes to internal New South Wales Liberal Party reform. It goes on, though, to stress that there is no sign of any conflict between their positions. These talking points are from one government MP's office and not from the Prime Minister's office, that are distributed widely within the government. Not that anyone's saying that's the case. They are referring to the dispute between the current and the former Prime Ministers over the best way to democratise parts of the New South Wales branch of their party. The Prime Minister was asked about the story at a press conference.
Our leaked reports suggest that there's somewhat of a war between yourself and Tony Abbott. Is that the case?
Of course not.
New evidence has emerged today that Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull are at war with each other. You don't have to take Labor's word for it. The talking points of government ministers refer to the war between Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott. This is a government who will need more than spin to paper over the fundamental divisions in this government.
Well, let's bring in Dan Borscher from our Canberra Bureau. Dan, we'll get to some of the other issues in the mix around paid parental leave in a moment. These talking points, so what were they? They were drafted by, what, one staffer for one MP, and Sky, we managed to get our hands on them. Is that the right understanding of this?
Well, it certainly appears as though they came from the office of one MP within government. Whether or not that was from a staffer, I'm not sure on. That's something that hasn't emerged, but certainly the content of those talking points very clearly focused on this rift, or so-called rift, that we've seen between the Prime Minister and his predecessor, one that played out very publicly when Parliament last sat.
But can I just ask about it? So whoever wrote the talking points, it's just one office. So they're for one MP, written by presumably someone in the office, as opposed to the MP, him or herself, and then we've managed to get our hands on it. But if it's not a wider distribution, it's just one person that doesn't know how to think before they write in one MP's office. Is that right? That's just the way that they've gone and worded it for the boss, presumably. Who got their hands on this?
Well, I know that this is certainly from one office. Whether or not that was more broadly distributed, I'm not sure. That was a story that was broken this morning by Kieran Gilbert on AM Agenda, and we'll have to get some more detail from him on those specific questions.
Yep, no worries. Yeah, I'm just curious because, I mean, it's idiocy, obviously, if somebody's turned around and worded it that way, but then it becomes idiocy on stilts if it's more broadly distributed. But if it hasn't been more broadly distributed, it's less of a problem for the government. But I tell you what, it's more of a problem for the individual who leaked it, I reckon, because then it hasn't had a wide distribution. And if we've got our hands on it, that doesn't look very good for that particular MP or people in the office that might know about that smaller distribution.